The invisible fight for your marriage. You've read every marriage book on the shelf. You've sat on the counselor's couch until you're blue in the face. You've shrunk yourself. You've stopped complaining. You've bent over backwards to keep the peace, but the house is still on fire. What if I told you that you aren't fighting your husband? What if I told you that you are actually in a war room, but you've been trying to fight a spirit with a spreadsheet? In this episode, I'm talking about the invisible battle for your home, for your family. I'm waking up the intercessors. Before I dive deep into this conversation, do me a favor. If this message is hitting home, hit the subscription button, leave a comment about where you're listening from, and share this with a sister who needs to hear it. We need to get these tools into the hands of every woman fighting for her family. So using communication tools for a battle that requires spiritual authority. I'm exposing the invisible fight for your marriage. Today's episode is not about blaming your husband. It's about waking up to discernment. It's about calling intercessors back to their posts. So there are 3-part human and 3-part marriage. Let me explain. To understand why your marriage feels like a battlefield, you need to go back to the foundation. You need to understand who you are. So as an African woman, this concept is second nature to me, and the Bible confirms it. Man is essentially a spirit. You have a soul, and you live in this body. You are a spirit, you are a soul, and you live in the body. And your marriage reflects the same 3-part design. The physical layer. And this is what most couples focus on. Bills, chores, sexual intimacy, parental logistics. Essentially, who did what? Who didn't? This is important, but it's not central. And now you have the soul layer, and this is where therapy usually sits. So when I see couples for counseling, we talk about emotions, communication styles, attachment patterns, personality clashes. This is still important, but it's not the root. Now let me talk about the spiritual layer of your marriage. This is the foundation of one flesh. This is where the covenant lives. This is where unity is either protected or attacked. Now pay attention to what I'm about to say. In fact, write this down. If you only work on behavior and emotions and ignore the spiritual layer, you're leaving the most important door wide open. You can regulate your tone and emotions. You can read your attachment style. You can learn conflict scripts. But if your marriage is under spiritual pressure, behavioral change alone won't hold. You end up trying to fix a spiritual leak, with an emotional duct tape, and eventually it will fall off. Now, let me tell you the red flags that your marriage is under spiritual warfare. The devil hates families. He hates covenants. He hates stability. He hates safety, and he hates generational healing. And no, saying I do does not make you immune. If anything, marriage puts a target on your back. Let's move forward very quickly. How do you know if you're under spiritual warfare? Here are 4 signs that what you're facing is not a personality clash. The first thing, I call it the escalation loop, where simple conversations escalate very quickly or they explode. For instance, you start talking about dishes and suddenly you're fighting about respect, worth, past wounds, childhood trauma. And after that conversation, you walk away exhausted. You're feeling guilt and shame. You're emotionally bruised because of what you said or because of the way you behaved. And this happens every time. Sign number 2, the counseling wall. When you've done therapy or couple counseling and you've implemented strategies, but the atmosphere in the home, it doesn't change. Instead, you have more insight, but your intimacy doesn't actually get closer. Sign number 3, When you've changed your tone, for example, you stopped nagging, in quote, you've tried silence, softness, and self-improvement, but the home still feels heavy. Sign number 4, the blind spot. Everyone else can see a clear issue with your spouse or yourself, but either of you cannot, or you minimize it, you deflect. This is often a spiritual numbness going on. It is not stubbornness, it's actually a stronghold. And let me say this very clearly. When common sense fails and counseling is not working, and you are dealing with immaturity, that's what it looks like. But actually, you're dealing with spiritual resistance. Let me introduce you to your new job description, intercessor. It's time to stop discussing your marriage problems with every well-meaning person, unless that person is ready to go into the trenches of midnight prayer and fasting with you. It's not just noise. It's not just about friends, because they won't save your marriage. Your bestie can't save your marriage. Only the supernatural power of God can. And you must stop outsourcing spiritual authority. If you just want empathy, you can continue to give people access to your struggle without any change. The scripture says, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God, to the pulling down of strongholds and casting down imaginations that exalt themselves against the will of the Lord. And this is what wisdom will look like for you. Number 1, start observing patterns. Start tracking recurring sore points. Identify the areas of access into your marriage. Is it finances? Is it control? Is it in-laws? Is it sexual intimacy? Is it power struggle? Once you identify the access point, you stop arguing with your spouse and start addressing the enemy. And what would that look like for you? Midnight prayer, fasting, scripture declarations. You're going to start using silence instead of reacting all the time. Now, when the spiritual pressure breaks, communication will start working again because the veil is lifted and therapy will begin to make sense. Now, let me put this in conclusion. Move in silence and power. If divorce runs in your family line, don't ignore it, because patterns repeat until someone interrupts them. Once you identify it, stop arguing with your husband and start arguing with the enemy of your spirit. You wake up at midnight, you fast, you intercede. Because when you break that spiritual deadlock through prayer, suddenly, boom, you start hearing each other. Your counseling, if you are having one, starts to make sense because that veil is shifted. Don't wait until your marriage becomes another statistics in your family tree. If your parents divorced or your spouse's parents were separated, that is already a generational pattern you're looking at. Cut it off at the root. You are the gatekeeper of your home. You have the authority to invite the supernatural into your space and clear out all the confusion. Now, let me leave this with you. Recognize that your husband is a spirit first. Your wife is a spirit first. Discern the signs of the warfare you're experiencing. Close all unnecessary mouths and open your heart to God. Some battles are not loud. Some victories are won quietly. And once you identify it, you will stop arguing and you will start challenging the enemy in spiritual battle. You wake up at midnight. Let me repeat that again. You fast, you intercede. Once you break that deadlock through prayer, you will start getting together, feel close, hearing each other again, and things will begin to make sense again. Your marriage is worth the fight, but only if you use the right weapons. Now, thank you for listening in. Drop a comment if this resonated, and see you in the next episode. Until then, stay confident, stay beautiful, and stay prayed up.